Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of Osa Radio, and now that Obsidian Flames is actually out, we can sit and have a look at the most valuable, most expensive, phrase it how you will, cards from Obsidian Flames. And before we get going here, I have wonderful, wonderful, wonderful news. This set is cheap. This set is way cheaper than we've seen from other recent sets, which makes me very, very happy indeed. Yes, obviously the top of the list is dominated by Charizard. That shouldn't really surprise anybody, but I'm telling you now, ladies and gentlemen, this list as a whole isn't terribly bad. I told you all that you shouldn't be going and buying these cards, beforehand. You should be waiting a little while, waiting for the prices to stabilize. And the good news is they have now stabilized quite nicely and things are awesome. Now, there are some cards, given what did make the list, there are a few cards that fairly surprisingly didn't actually get on the list. Ones that I generally would have expected to be on here, and I'm honestly genuinely surprised aren't on here. So, there are a couple I wanted to point out quickly. We could go and have a look at the Special Illustration Rare of Ice Cube. I think this is a playable card, and it's still a Special Illustration Rare Pokemon. It's like $6. The Special Illustration Rare of Poppy, lounging on the Copperage, like $7. Gold Artisan, it's like a $5 card. And the Special Illustration Rare of Revavroom is like a $4 card. None of these actually made it, despite being the kind of cards that have pretty low pull rates. So what did make it? Well, in at number 10, at $7, we've got Cleffa. And I've made no secret of the fact here that as far as I'm concerned, Cleffa has some of the best artwork we've ever seen in the game. I think the Cleffa here is absolutely stunning. I think this is one of the nicest, coolest, prettiest, phrase it how you will, cards that we've had in a long time, maybe ever. I love the art of Haganasuke, but even bearing in mind how good the art of Haganasuke, the artist, generally is, this is still, even with that borne in mind, kind of ridiculous. This is a stunning, stunning card, and I absolutely love it. But it's also here for reasons of playability. For a single energy, draw 2, you got 7 cards in your hand. Now, this is going to give up a price. You got 30 HP. It is a huge liability, and most of the time, playing this means you're going to be giving up a price. But in the early game, if you've literally got nothing else, if you've got no way of actually being able to get set up, why not? I know there are some people out there that are a huge fan of this card and think it's going to see a huge amount of play. I think it's got a huge amount of potential, but I don't think we're in a format at the moment that is particularly good for it. I could easily be wrong. I'd love to be wrong, because if I'm wrong, everyone's going to play the Haganasuke artwork, and I get to see that card all the time, and that's going to make me happy. But it's partly the artwork, partly we love Cleffa, and partly this card might be good. In at number 9, we've got PIDGEY. Now, PIDGEY is here because PIDGEOT is good. And I'm going to have to spoil it a little bit because PIDGEOT is coming a little bit further up this list. PIDGEOT is one we're going to be seeing in the not-too-distant future. And you know what? Yeah. PIDGEOT is a really great card. It's got that ability, quick search, lets you search for any card in your deck once per turn. Even if you have multiple PIDGEOT out, you still only get to do the search once. But it's phenomenal, and a lot of people think this is going to be broken and see a huge amount of play. So for that reason, a lot of people want the PIDGEY. What is interesting here, PIDGEOT isn't on this list. PIDGEY makes the list, PIDGEOT makes the list, PIDGEOT doesn't make the list. And the reason here, very simply, is rare candy is a thing. And an awful lot of players are going to be playing, 2 or 3 PIDGEY, couple of PIDGEOT, and maybe 1 PIDGEOT at the most, because they're largely going to be relying on rare candy to actually get set up here. Which is an interesting one. So because rare candy exists, we're not going to see PIDGEOT on this list, even though PIDGEY and PIDGEOT are. PIDGEY is here purely because it evolves into PIDGEOT, and everybody expects PIDGEOT to be a very, very good card. And this is the fancy illustration rare version of PIDGEY. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, in at number 8, we got the full art of Tyranitar coming in about $10. And honestly, I just don't really get this one. Like, sure, Tyranitar's a cool Pokemon. Everyone loves Tyranitar. But these full art Pokemon are generally extremely cheap. The other two, well, other than the obvious one, but you know, your Ice Cube and your Vespiquen, they're like $2 cards. This is your full art Terror, of course. But your Ice Cube and your Vespiquen, they're like $2 cards. And this is coming in as a $10 card? Is it really that much more playable? I don't think it is for what it's worth. I think it's less playable than Ice Cube and arguably less playable than Vespiquen. It's a stage 2 in a format which still isn't particularly fun for stage 2s. And sure, it's got powerful attacks when you get up there. Single energy 120 is nice, even if you do have to discard the top 2 cards of your deck. And, you know, potentially being able to do 250 with a second attack is powerful. I just don't think it's a particularly good card. So it's getting up here on the merit of the Pokemon. But when the other two are there at like $2, I just don't see this, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is too high and is going to fall. Speaking of which, in at number 7, we've got Ninetales at $12. And look, this happens nowadays every set with a couple of the artwork rares. People collectively go, oh my goodness, the art on this is absolutely stunningly amazing. Let's play this. That is exactly what's happened with Ninetales here. Everybody has looked at this and decided that the artwork is absolutely amazing, and therefore everybody wants the Ninetales. It's not a good card. Nobody is really wanting to play this card. Now, to be fair, the attack is kind of nice. 2 fire energy and it puts 9 damage counts on one of your opponent's Pokemon, and then it can't attack next turn. The 2 energy, the fact that it's a stage 1, it's all kind of awkward, but the fact that if you go first, you can be dropping 9 damage counters on a Pokemon before they get a chance to evolve is actually a pretty big deal. But it's just the artwork here. People have collectively decided this is a beautiful card and pushed it up, and these special illustration rares generally tend to come back down to earth. Now, in at number 6, we got the special illustration rare of Geeta, and partly this is because the artwork is absolutely stunning, but I actually adore this as a card. What it lets you do is search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards and attach them to one of your Pokemon. Now, during this turn, any of your Pokemon, none of them are allowed to attack, right? But you can still use another card that ends your turn. Something like Boost Shake, for instance, that searches and evolves even if the Pokemon was played this turn. Generally speaking, you know, it's a good card, but it's awkward because it ends your turn. Well, here, you get the energy with Geeta, and then you go ahead and evolve with Boost Shake to end your turn. And even though you haven't attacked, that is a pretty good way of doing things. Plus, bearing in mind, some decks don't need to attack every turn. Like, some decks are going to be totally okay with not attacking every single turn. Control decks, things of that nature. So something like Geeta here is going to be particularly good in those kind of decks. I like it, ladies and gentlemen. I like it. Now, in at number 5, we got the special illustration rare of PIDGEOT. That comes in at $16. And I talked about PIDGEOT earlier. I told you earlier why Pidgeot's a very good card, and it's one that I expect to see a bunch of play. And the player base generally is divided on Pidgeot. Some people think that it is a phenomenal card that is going to just open up a whole bunch of decks and completely change the format. Other people think that it's not quite so good. Other people think that it's a little bit uninspiring, that because it's a stage 2, it's never going to quite be good enough. And the reality is, until we have a bunch of time with this format, do a bunch of testing, and then play a bunch of tournaments, we're not actually going to know which way round it goes. We are not going to know which of these is actually the right one. But honestly, there is enough here to pop it up on this list. And the top 4 cards are all Charizard. So in at number 4, we've got the regular EX. It's a $25 card. And here's the thing, right? I love this card. It's a very cool card, but it's also a stage 2. And we are in a format right now that has not been particularly kind, I think is a fair way to put this, to stage 2s. But if you get Charizard going, it's very clearly an awesome card. When you evolve up into it, you get to search your deck for free fire energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. Any Pokemon. And you can spread the energy around. It's pretty cool. And then for 2 energy, 180, plus 30 more for each prize card your opponent has taken. Well, that's 2 energy, and by the time your opponent's taken 5 prizes and is about to win the game, you drop on Iono to put him down to 1 card, and Charizard is hitting for free 30. There's clearly a huge amount of potential here. but it's a stage 2, and it really does, remain to be seen how high this is going to get. Regardless, people seem to be loving it, and honestly, $25 for the regular version of this is absurd. Having the 4th biggest card in the set in terms of value be a regular EX is absolutely ridiculous. That's just not the kind of thing we see. Regular EXs are generally like $1 or $2 cards. And look, I know it's a Charizard, so that is obviously going to push the value up. And I know it could actually be a playable Charizard, and again, that is going to push the value up. But the idea here that this Charizard is actually a $25 card as a regular EX is kind of silly. And then we just go from here. Now, the full art is a $30 card, coming in at number 3. Why it's only $5 more than the regular, I'm not entirely sure. That seems like a weird disparity. I would expect the regular to start crashing. The set's out now. It's been out for a few days. I would expect this to keep crashing and crashing while the full art stabilized or maybe even went up a bit. But yeah, the fact it's only $5 more is weird. In at number 2, at $40, we've got the gold version of Charizard. And look, we're just following along with the pull rates here. The harder it is to pull, the more expensive it gets. Same card as a full art, and I mean like literally the same artwork, but because it's gold and has a lower pull rate, that means that it ends up coming in at $40 rather than $30. And then obviously in at number 1, we got the special illustration Red Charizard at $90. Which, to be fair, that seems cheap. Again, pre-release, people were paying way too much for this card. It has absolutely crashed in value. I find that funny. And yeah, it's $90 now, but it does seem to be falling quite quickly. But I want to know what you think about all of this. I want to know which of these cards you pulled. I want to know which of these cards you're going to be picking up. I want to know anything you want to tell me about Obsidian Flames. So go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and card games and Pokemon card games, all kinds of fun things. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.